These are some of the latest 14-inch laptops that I have, and how is this one so small? This is the newly released Lenovo Yoga Slim 9i, and just look at how thin the bezels are around the screen. This laptop has a much higher screen-to-body ratio than all these other 14-inch laptops, which is why it's able to be so much smaller. There's also no notch or a lip that sticks up for the webcam. It looks great, but how are they able to do this? And smaller isn't always better, so let's find out how this laptop really performs. This video is sponsored by Lenovo, but I won't be holding back, so you'll get the full picture on how it's like to use this device. Starting with the webcam, which does exist, and it looks like this. Right now, I have a lot of bright lights on, and even with a lot of light, it doesn't look the best. And in lower light settings, it gets even worse. That's because the webcam is underneath the display. It's clearly optimized for being completely invisible when not in use, rather than the image quality. And Lenovo has done a really good job at the invisible part. Here's the Z Fold 6, which also has an under-display camera. And if you look at these two up close, the Lenovo under-display camera is way less visible. You can see a little bit of that patch-looking pattern up close, but at a typical distance that you would use a laptop, it's basically impossible to tell where the camera is. And so you get zero interruptions on your screen. Besides just hiding the camera, there are also a few more tricks that make this 14-inch laptop so small, such as using a flexible POLED screen so that the connector can be folded over, which means there's no need for the bottom bezel to be taller like on other typical laptops. So you get this super thin bezel all the way around, which is pretty special. And it has these rounded edges at the top. It looks really nice, but the bottom is still a sharp corner. And the hinge itself is also super small, but still very strong. The only thing is that it lacks the party trick of folding completely flat, which I'm okay with. So yeah, this laptop is very small, but it's not the slimmest since it has a pretty big 75 watt-hour battery. That's even more battery capacity than the 14-inch MacBook Pro. The tapered sides feel pretty nice in the hands and does make this laptop look thinner than it actually is. There are only 2 ports on this laptop, but at least they're on opposite sides and both are Thunderbolt 4. There's also a privacy shutter for the webcam, and when you're actively using the camera, you have this little white light on the top to let you know that it's on. And the only other thing on the side is a power button. I feel like I would prefer it if the fingerprint scanner can double as a power button, because when it's on the side like this, it's kind of prone to accidental clicking. There have definitely been times where I put this laptop to sleep when I didn't mean to. But the most special thing about this build is the big glass top. It's very pretty and reflects light in interesting ways. Just look at these light pattern that it makes. When I first saw all this glass, I thought this has gotta be a durability concern. But actually, in some ways, it's more durable than typical aluminum because this is a 9H hardness glass. So instead of a screen, it feels more like a super tough glass screen protector that you would put on top of a display. There's almost nothing that can scratch it. Here, I have an Allen wrench and not a single mark. Now, if I drop it, will it shatter? I don't know. It feels pretty tough and almost like a super hard plastic. So I think it would be fine, but I'm not going to drop test a review unit. Plus, I don't remember the last time that I actually dropped a laptop. Fingers crossed. Okay, so it's a great looking small laptop with a pretty cool lid, but what is it like to actually use? Well, starting with what you see, the screen, which is what Lenovo calls a PureSight Pro display. It's 4K 120Hz and an OLED touchscreen. It's very color accurate with a delta E of less than 1, and it covers 100% P3. This is a very sharp and color capable screen, which is great for design or creative work. And it can hit 600 nits typically with a 700 nits peak brightness. And as for what you touch, the trackpad is as large as it can be on this small chassis, but it's still the old diving board design that's very hard to click at the top. Now, as for the keyboard, they really used up all of the room on this small laptop and even squeezed in an extra column of shortcut keys. I actually really like them. This one toggles between the different power modes. This next one is for the different sound modes. Like in the movie sound mode, it will try to make the dialogue sound clearer. And then you have the eye care mode toggle, and you can adjust how warm you want the color temperature to be in the Lenovo Vantage settings. And lastly, the start key opens a custom app. The Yoga keyboard has always been pretty good, but with this laptop, they increased the travel to 1.5 millimeters and also tweaked the actuators, so it feels even more responsive and tactile. I really love typing on this thing. The keycaps are also just a little bit concave, so it helps to center your fingers, and there's also a new coating. It feels like a smoother, soft touch coating. It feels great, but the best part is the anti-oil property. Hopefully, it means that it'll stay looking good for a long time and it won't have that nasty shine to it in a few years' time. Now, when it comes to the performance, this one that I have has the new Intel Core Ultra 7 258V processor, and the new generation of Intel Lunar Lake processors are very different. It's a completely new architecture for Intel, and it has some pretty unique benefits and drawbacks. Starting with the fact that it only has 8 threads and is slower. What? But that's kind of missing the point. The new processor is designed not for all-out performance, but better day-to-day performance while optimizing for efficiency and packaging. Part of the reason the laptop is so compact is the new processor having RAM integrated, so the entire processor unit is easier to package. But there's definitely no adding more RAM after the fact. The last digit of the processor code actually indicates how much RAM you have, 8 for 32 gigabytes and 6 for 16 gigabytes. So for the single core performance, which is the most important thing for a responsive web browsing experience, as well as many other everyday tasks, it's significantly faster than last generation's Core Ultra 7 155H. And it does so while using less power. The multi-thread score is lower in benchmarks, but if you're not doing anything super demanding, you won't really feel much of a difference. However, during my time with the Yoga Slim 9i, I do notice the increased efficiency. When I play back a 4K 60 video on it, the fans don't even spin up, and the keyboard deck remains cool to the touch. Like, you can barely feel anything on the keyboard, which is pretty crazy. That wasn't the case with most x86 laptops until now. Honestly, the biggest difference the processor provides is a cooler and quieter computing experience. And this computer is still very usable in the battery saver mode, where the processor uses around 60% less energy, but it still puts out a reasonable score for day-to-day use. And it really does seem to last forever when it's in this mode. When it comes to the battery life, when doing day-to-day tasks, this laptop only uses around 60% of the power of the previous x86 chips from Intel. Plus, for a 14-inch, this laptop has a huge battery at 75 watt-hours. The longest lasting 14-inch laptop I've tested is the M4 Max MacBook Pro, and the Yoga Slim 9i kept up with it, matching it exactly after looping YouTube videos for 4.5 hours. Both of them only use 37% of the battery. Overall, I think 14-inch is a sweet spot for a laptop that you take everywhere. It gives you enough room to get work done, and it's still super compact, especially this one. Plus, the Yoga Slim 9i offers great battery life, so as long as you're not looking to do hardcore rendering or gaming, this is definitely worth checking out. I'll have a link to the Yoga Slim 9i down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.